Hello, everybody. Welcome. We decided to have a last-minute live stream today to talk about the craziness that is going on Capitol Hill right now with the fourth vote for the Speaker of the House, which is unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this in decades. And it's an interesting development. Yesterday, for those who are unaware, yesterday the vote was held for the Speaker of the House. And who was up for that was Representative Kevin McCarthy. And on the Democratic Party side, which the Democrats now no longer hold a majority, the Republicans hold a majority. On the Democratic Party side, Jeffries was up for their nomination. And while the Democrats are voting in a block, the Republicans seem to be and appear to be split. And we're noticing that 20 Republicans, now 21 as of the fourth round of voting, can completely shake things up in Congress and hold up the vote, which is one thing that back in 2018 and 2020, progressives and leftists were calling for progressive outsider representatives to do, when to stand up to Nancy Pelosi, to vote against Nancy Pelosi, to nominate someone else to run, which some did in 2018, nominate various people to run. In 2020, Nancy Pelosi skirted through with zero to little opposition at all. What we are seeing today on the fourth round of votes is Kevin McCarthy losing even more votes. As of the first round of voting, Kevin McCarthy lost 6 votes. The second round of voting, Kevin McCarthy lost 19 votes. The third round of voting, Kevin McCarthy lost 20 votes. This fourth round of voting, 21 Republicans have now cast their ballots for Byron from out of Florida, who the Freedom Caucus give me just a moment, pulling everything up here. Byron Donalds from the Freedom Caucus was nominated by the Freedom Caucus. Now, a little bit about Byron Donalds. He is a representative from out of Florida. Byron Donalds has been serving since 2016. So he's a newer candidate or a newer representative to the House. He's someone who, grew up outside of the DC Beltway. He grew up outside of privilege. And that's one of the things that the Freedom Caucus is now leaning in on, as they've shifted their support from Representative Jim Jordan, who they nominated yesterday, to Byron Donalds, who they initially nominated in the first place, but shifted their nomination to Jim Jordan, now back to Byron Donalds. Why? Why is all of this happening? Is there anything to it? What we are seeing is there's very little concessions being asked for by these Freedom Caucus members. Leading the charge on this are members such as Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert, who gave her speech today as the nomination for Byron Donalds. And with that, we have to ask ourselves, what are the Freedom Caucus members playing at? What are they doing here? What's the point in holding up the vote? And as many of you guys know and have felt it across the country, with the rise of the Bernie Sanders boom, we have, since 2016, the majority of the country have fled the voter rolls of both Republican and Democratic parties. And there is a rising anti-establishment sentiment in this country, the same type of sentiment that got Donald Trump elected, the same type of sentiment that helped to elect the squad members that are in the House that are refusing to buck the nomination for Jeffries, who Jeffries is the classic neoliberal, will vote along party lines every single time. Corporate candidate. He is someone who it takes a ton of corporate cash. He is someone who will vote for corporate welfare while voting to dismantle our social safety nets. Someone who supports the proxy war in Ukraine, someone who will vote for the military budget every single time. And this year, the largest military budget in American history that was voted on overwhelmingly by every member of the House, even some of these so-called quote unquote rabble rousers now from out of the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus has latched on to this anti-establishment sentiment, and they're smart, man. I'll give that to them. They're smart. They see the zeitgeist. They see the painting on the wall. They are willing to do what AOC, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, the new representatives that are in the House, they are willing to do what these progressives are not. And that is to shake things up from the very beginning, to set a precedent, to say we're the populist wing of representation right now in the United States. And that's scary. That's scary because while these individuals like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz are some of the most fringe, some of the most hateful, they want to see our borders shut down. They believe in white replacement theory. They are anti-LGBTQ. They are pro-corporatist. They're so far pro-corporatist that they're on the Ayn Rand spectrum of pro-corporatism. These are not people who are for the people, as they are saying. They are conservatism in its purest form. They are fascist. People like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz are flat out fascist. They want to expand the police state. They want to expand the military state. So what we're seeing now is, and someone asked, is Jeffries going to win? There's no way Jeffries can win because he doesn't have the votes to take the majority. So in order for Jeffries to win, we would have to have some Republicans that were willing to switch and to vote for Jeffries. And I don't believe that we're going to see that happen. What we're seeing right now, we're seeing theater play out. We are seeing the Freedom Caucus pretending to be rabble rousers, pretending to be edgy, pretending to challenge the system. And that's one of the reasons that they've singled out Byron Donalds, is because Byron Donalds is, like many of us, not from the privileged beltway that the rest of them are from. But again, it's theater. It's not authentic. And they probably saw, and this is just an assumption on my part, but the massive push that forced the vote was when it came to Alexander, when it came to pushing back on the squad and AOC and others who voted for Pelosi in 2020. The Freedom Caucus are smart enough to latch on to that and to paint themselves as the rebels in the House, as the ones who are willing to push back on the establishment when the majority in the country are tired of the establishment and ready to throw a wrench into the system. They feign at being anti-war, yet folks like Lauren Boebert, folks like Byron Donalds, folks like Matt Gaetz have pushed and pushed for war with China and for war with Iran. They are not anti-war. They are using the anti-war sentiment, though, for their theater, which is brilliant. We see them from the Trump wing. We have seen them work to erode our elections. We have had Democrats and Republicans working through gerrymandering, through voter ID legislation to limit the amount of voters voting, because that benefits both parties when that happens. Some of the ones who are calling for the most strict restrictions are these individuals from the Freedom Caucus. So right now, this is just a delay. This is all theater. And in order to show you guys, Colin, if you could pull up Lauren Boebert's speech, I'll go ahead and go through that, and then we can go over the couple of links. Jordan is still out because, as Ron said, he made a person, so he is still on dad duty. And Jordan Sheridan will be back mid-January, but he has sent us some links and some other things that we can share on the stream as well. But yeah, Colin, if you could pull up that speech, I would love to share with you guys Lauren Boebert's speech so that you can hear for yourselves listen while you watch this. Listen to the rhetoric that she's using here. Listen to how she uses some of the same rhetoric that AOC used when she was elected, and she said, let's bring the ruckus, right? She uses some of the same rhetoric that Cori Bush used when she ran, that, you hear from Nina Turner. But if you listen closely, you'll hear the bigotry, you'll hear the fascism wrapped in. It is a dangerous type of populism, and in part, I blame the toothless nature of our progressive caucus, the toothless nature of the Democrats, the spineless nature of the Democrats, for these Republicans to be able to step up and to pretend to be populist. Because right now we don't have a single progressive. We don't have a left in this country. We don't have a left party. The Democrats are not the party of the left. They are a right-leaning party. The Republicans are as well. And at the end of the day, most of these people vote on the same things and agree, progressives included. It's all an illusion. And right now, the smart thing to do is to go with where the majority of the people are. And that is the anti-establishment sentiment. And that is exactly what these Freedom Caucus members are playing on, just as they did when the Tea Party became extremely strong in 2014 through 2016. Colin, if you could go ahead and start it, I'll hush now and let this play for a couple minutes.
I rise to nominate Congressman Byron Donalds.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
I rise today to nominate Byron Donalds, my friend, an amazing man of Florida, an amazing leader, someone who almost even took leadership here in our Republican Party and came very close in doing so, and it was a very brave run that he took. He's a man who understands what tough times look like and has come out of those tough times even stronger, more liberated, and as a leader. Now, we just heard from my respected colleague from Ohio, and he stated some amazing rules that we have been able to get an agreement on, I think. We were threatened pretty heavily in conference, saying if we don't do as we ought, then some of those rules may just go away. But even naming the germaneness rule, which is really fantastic, after Morgan Griffith, well, that was our idea too. My question is, why didn't the supposed leader of the Republican Party present these rules? Why were we fought so hard on these rules? The barrier that still stands in the way of these rules is the structure that prevents us from rolling over. And as my friend from Chip Roy stated, we need the tools and the leadership to do our job correctly. And I believe that Byron Donalds is the man to lead us to that path of getting America on track and uniting the Republican Party. My colleagues and I have worked tirelessly for months to build consensus, to negotiate in good faith, to help unify our party on border security, energy security, debt reduction, term limits, earmarks, among other many common sense policies. But too often our efforts have fallen on deaf ears. Our border is wide open. Inflation is out of control. The Senate just passed $1.7 trillion without our input. So let me be clear. Our job is not to coronate the biggest fundraiser or rubber stamp the status quo or keep on going along to get along. It's to use our votes to elect a speaker who will enable us to get our country back on track. Getting the job done is what we were elected to do. And that starts with having a leader who supports Republican principles, builds consensus, and has a proven track record of success. Byron Donalds is that leader. Republicans, including many moderates, have been impressed by Byron Donalds. They're impressed by his ability to work together. They respect his leadership. We see him as someone who can communicate what we are all wanting to do in this House to Americans. And he represents so much more than just his district in Florida. Many millions of Americans all over this nation praise the work and the leadership of Byron Donalds. So let's work together. Let's stop with the campaign smears and tactics to get people to turn against us, even having my favorite president call us and tell us we need to knock this off. I think it actually needs to be reversed. The president needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the votes and it's time to withdraw. With that, I yield. Thank you.
All right. So you guys could hear, thanks, Colin. You guys could hear that it almost, you have to look beyond the revelry because it almost sounds populist, right? It almost sounds progressive in some ways. But if you noticed, it had very little substance. There was no substance in that speech. The things that she talked about, one thing I agreed with, term limits. Hell yeah, let's have term limits. Let's get term limits up there. We shouldn't have a Mitch McConnell who serves 30 years. One of my representatives, Mitch McConnell, who has served 20 years in the Senate. We shouldn't have Nancy Pelosi, or 30 years in the Senate. We shouldn't have Nancy Pelosi, who served a lifetime in the House. There should be term limits or something that I think most of us agree on. But as people do with fascist rhetoric, they'll often throw in something that is heavily agreed upon and then add layers to that, more layers to that aren't popular, such as speaking about, border security. When Lauren Boebert talks about border security, she has been supporting DeSantis busing people and leaving them on. DeSantis and Abbott have both been busing people. Abbott bust folks out of Texas, Governor Abbott bust folks out of Texas on Christmas Eve and left several dozen migrants outside in the cold, including children, with nowhere to go, and using individuals as a political pawn, human beings. And so we look at the types of things that she's mentioned: border security, energy security. Energy security means more drilling. It means more leaky pipelines. It means not taking care of the environmental issues that are causing our country harm in the pollution right now. There's no discussion of healthcare, education, social safety nets, corporate regulation. But it almost sounds good, right? She sounds spirited. She sounds like a rabble rouser. But don't be fooled by this. The issue that I see that I am most angry about, for those of you that haven't seen me around, I worked as the press director for Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress. For about a year, I worked with Justice Democrats as well, but then shifted to working with Brand New Congress, who helped and worked as communications director for them, who helped to elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cory Bush. I helped to launch these candidates' campaigns. I was in the background, getting them ready for debates, helping them with their messaging, helping to bring in volunteers, door knock, do call time, get them elected. Only to see these people go to the House and not shake things up. Alex didn't bring the ruckus. Just a month ago, they voted in favor of the railroad companies over the workers, asking for something as simple as sick days. They've given no pushback to the funding, the non-transparent funding, hundreds of billions of dollars going to the proxy war in Ukraine. Zero pushback from these progressives. They have left a hole. They have left a hole with their silence and placating to the Democratic Party, and now celebrating neoliberal Jeffries as the Speaker of the House. They have left a hole for the Freedom Caucus to be able to hop in and say, we're the rabble rousers. But they're just another wing of another party. And the Democratic and Republican parties at the end of the day are the same. They generally vote in line. They're generally the same. There are some differences, especially at local and state level, when it comes to abhorrent local legislation that's being passed statewide. However, when it comes to social safety nets, when it comes to corporate regulation, when it comes to things like term limits, these Republicans and Democrats at the end of the day in the House will vote for what secures and pads their pocketbooks. They will stack the decks so that they can make the money off Wall Street. They can keep their corporate donors coming in. They can be close to the seats of power. They can have the large Twitter followings. They can rub elbows with the wealthy and the elite. And they'll do anything to maintain their power. And this is all the Freedom Caucus is. They're a Stephen Bannon-esque wing of the Republican Party who understand the zeitgeist. They're smart enough to see the zeitgeist, to know that people are fed up, to know that most of us out there are not blind to this. That's why 70 to 76% of Americans are now considered independent, free from both parties, and why one of the most popular issues polled among folks in the United States, among voters, is corruption at the top. More than 90% agree that Congress is corrupt. They agree that the corruption is impacting us, and they agree that corporate hegemony and monopolies are wrong. But the Freedom Caucus supports those monopolies. They support that corruption, but don't get it wrong. So does Joseph McCarthy. So did Jim Jordan. So does Jeffries. Each of these speakers are going to decide what legislation is brought forward to be voted on by the House floor. They will be placing the assignments in the oversight committees and the committees that will help to get legislation to the floor. But at the end of the day, we're not going to see much difference. What worries me the most is the shift in the country because of this theater. The mainstream media is already calling folks like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz. They're calling them rebels. And Democrats are celebrating this as a win for them because there's disunity within the Republican Party. When the ironic thing is, this is exactly what the American public wants to see, is disunity in the Democratic Party. They want to see independents run. They want to see third parties. They're sick and tired of the unity because the unity isn't for us, folks. The unity is for, as Jordan says, the United Corporations of America. The unity is for the companies. The unity is to preserve themselves, to rig the races, to do everything they can to maintain their power. I know that there was another link, Colin, regarding, I believe it was something that Lauren Boebert talked about in her speech, and that was now Donald Trump pushing for support for McCarthy, which I think is very interesting, considering that there's only 21 votes for this time Byron Donalds. There was 20 yesterday for Jordan. It seems that Donald Trump knows the winds that the Republican Party is blowing down right now and is calling for the Freedom Caucus to stand down. I thought that it was interesting that Lauren Boebert was willing to call out Donald Trump when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gave Joe Biden an A on immigration. When she supported the abolition of ICE, I know because I helped to lead that messaging campaign to abolish ICE. Helped to organize the rallies across the country to support the abolition of the DHS, which we don't need. It's only 16 years old. But she gives Biden an A+ on that. She gives Biden an A+ on the economy. But Lauren Boebert is willing to call out Trump. Is it authentic? Hell no. She's doing it for show. I know exactly what Lauren Boebert is doing. But what will people see when they see that? They're going to see someone with enough gusto to stand up to the establishment and to even stand up to who is the leader of their wing of the party. That's what tells us that these progressives are no different than any other damn Democrat that they promised to go in and challenge. That's what they got elected to do. That's what Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley ran on. Remember Pramila Jayapal back in 2014? That's what she was going to do, right? That's what Ro Khanna was going to do. They were going to bring us Medicare for all in the next 5 years. It's been 5 years. I keep hearing about pragmatic progressivism. Where the hell is Medicare for all? We've waited and people are still dying. Where is it? Now are Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz going to bring us Medicare for all, even though it's popular, even though they claim to be populist and be supporting what the public wants? I think Lauren Boebert told us herself what she plans to do. She said in the speech that her and Donald's and the Freedom Caucus was going to show what they were going to do to the American people. Of course, that was probably just a slip, but she didn't say what she's going to do for the American people. And that kind of cracked me up. I was like, yeah, it's what you're going to do to the American people. That's probably the truest thing you said in your entire speech. But Colin, do you want to pull up one of the clips that Jordan has, and we could talk about that?
With the troublemakers within the GOP conference, potentially Democrats, if it comes to that pass. And as Congressman Bacon hinted at earlier, one of the options is for this group and or Kevin to say directly, quoting The Godfather, here's nothing. To pull back from some of the concessions that he's made that disappointed some of Kevin's supporters. That's a possibility as well. We're at a kitchen sink moment right now.
A kitchen sink moment. So they're throwing everything out there, but that's actually not accurate. This guy's missing the fact that the Freedom Caucus first nominated Byron Donalds about a week and a half ago. So they're not just pulling him out of nowhere. This was their first pick. I'm not sure why they shifted to Jim Jordan. It's not clear why they did. There was no concessions noted. Maybe they thought that more people would get on board by and that's just an assumption because they haven't communicated their strategy. But what do you guys feel about that? I feel like that was just a bunch of hullabaloo from the media trying to consider theater as something real. As if these Freedom Caucus members have any strategy other than the pageantry. And that's really what it's all about. Do we have another one of the clips?
Sympathy here for Kevin McCarthy because I don't know to some extent whether or not a deal, we'll see ultimately if this is true or not, but could have been cut. As he's made concessions and they've been agreed to, we talk about goalposts moving, but the goalposts keep moving so much that we don't know whether or not this is a caucus that essentially is the nothing will ever be good enough caucus, in which case the GOP, whatever the majority is, whomever the speaker is, will have real fractures moving forward.
Whoever the speaker is will have real fractures moving forward. I don't think so. I think what happens, if you guys remember, it's like in this country, I feel like the mainstream media has short-term memory syndrome. How many government shutdowns did we have when there was nearly a split house in 2018 and 2020? It seemed like every time we were just waiting. Government shutdowns became the norm when they're not normal. We just expected it. We expected the government shutdowns. And most of the time it was along party lines, but there was always pockets within the party that wanted something else. You have the Rand Pauls, you have the and in the Senate you had the Kristen Sinemas, and you have the rotating villains, right? But at the end of the day, what do they always cut out of the legislation? They always cut out anything that benefits us. And they add in things that benefit corporations and things that benefit themselves. The corporate bailouts in 2018 and 2019 was a great example. The small business loans, the PPP loans, which were granted to individuals, were mostly granted to millionaires, not to struggling people who own small businesses and barely get by. In fact, there were restrictions that made it harder for people like us to be able to take out a PPP loan. And it was impossible for private contractors to take them out, even though the gig economy is now how millennials get jobs and Zoomers get jobs. We don't get regular jobs. We either take temp work or we do contract work most of the time with no benefits. There was no bailout for us, but corporate bailouts were written in 2019 and 2020. They feigned at there being a split house or a split Senate. And that's the same thing that the mainstream media is doing. It's already been that way. These people are already going to vote like that. There's been a rift in the Republican Party between the neoliberals and the hardcore Trumpers. But one thing that sticks out to me, and it's something Jordan actually just texted me and said, that Trump called 20 of the Freedom Caucus members who voted for Jim Jordan, asking them to vote for McCarthy. He picked up the phone and called 20 of them. And what happened was 21 voted for Byron Donalds. Every vote that happens, Jim Jordan or McCarthy loses more votes. He's losing more votes with every vote. That's crazy. But the House can't do anything. They can't pass any legislation. They can't do anything until the speakership is settled. And I keep thinking they're not doing anything for us right now. We need to keep our post office running. We need to keep, the governmental systems that help us now running, the bare minimum that we have. We do have to keep that. So we need a functioning government to keep that. But beyond that, they're not doing a damn thing for us. They give far more money to the military and expanding the police industrial complex and the militarization of our police force than they do to any of those systems that are put in place to help us, such as the Postal Service, such as, Parks and Rec, such as our public libraries. Hell, they don't even fund education anymore. In the early 90s, education used to be funded at 85% federally subsidized. That's how a lot of folks in former generations were able to go to school for basically free. State and community college was basically completely federally subsidized. They had to pay very little out of pocket. Now it's only subsidized at 12% federally. That means students are carrying far more burden who go to state colleges and universities. Abe Lincoln wrote the first wrote the grants for state colleges so that they would be free. But that's where we're at. It's all theater. And folks will ask, who do you think's going to get elected? Who do you think will end up being speaker? I think it'll eventually be McCarthy, but they are going to drag this out. And I do feel that there may be a few more rounds of votes, and some other Republicans are going to want to get in on the rebel rousing, right? They're going to want to be seen as the edgies. And what's going to happen is that the Republican Party, I believe, is going to make concessions to the fringe of their party, because they're all that way. They're all the fringe. They're all fascist. At the end of the day. So they're going to pretend like this small group pushed them and they had to, support closing down the border. So they're going to work toward that. And that's going to be what's going to happen. But when I see this, hold on just a second. I am getting some links in here from some folks helping. Let's see if they sent me anything new. Okay. So what I am most disappointed by, being someone who worked on the front lines to help get these candidates elected, I never considered myself a Democrat. That's funny. That's why I signed up to volunteer for Brand New Congress, because Brand New Congress was aiming to run independents, to run third-party candidates, to run non-corporate progressive candidates who would buck the Democratic Party, not reform it. And that's what I signed on to. I didn't sign on to reforming the Democratic Party. I personally never believed in that, but I know that a lot of people did. And I know that a lot of people voted on the Progressive Caucus, which is huge. If the Progressive Caucus wanted to push back on Jeffries and get someone else as the minority speakers, they could get seats, so that they could get seats on the committee, so that they could, push back against the neoliberalism right establishment in the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is a right-wing party. We have no left party in this country. We are one of the few industrialized nations in the world that does not have healthcare as a human right. So where are these progressives? Why are they celebrating Jeffries and enthusiastically throwing their support behind him, and enthusiastically throwing their support behind the Build Back bullshit plan that we had earlier this year? Why are they acting like it's a celebration when Biden does the absolute bare minimum on climate change, when our immigration system has not changed and there are still tens of thousands of people in concentration camps at the border. What's going to happen here is that the fascists are going to start getting a larger foothold. No, we have crazy ass legislation like the Don't Say Gay bill. We have books being confiscated at the state and local levels. Here in Kentucky, the state house is trying to make local and school board elections partisan. That's going on in the meantime, while the quote unquote left leaders are celebrating neoliberal corporatism. They're going in gala dresses that say tax the rich, while people are dying from preventable disease, while moms can't get treatment for their children with diabetes, while our rights are literally being taken away in states, and women are dying because they can't get aftercare treatment from a miscarriage because of anti-abortion laws. While corporations are so drastically monopolizing and consolidating that the only work that we can find is temp work, and they're union busting to the point that even union organizing has become extremely difficult, and we're back to industrial war era fights. It might as well be 1919. McDonald's 2 weeks ago, Ron did a story on McDonald's. 2 McDonald's had child labor, open child labor, 10, 11, 12-year-olds working. These are real things that are happening across the country. There is no middle class anymore. The wealth disparity is the greatest it has ever been since 1929, before the market crashed. That's where we're at. And the only rabble rousers that we see right now are the theatrics from the Freedom Caucus for this House vote, which is a big freaking nothing burger. But what is not a nothing burger is the fact that the silence and the complacency and the passionate votes for Jeffries from the supposed progressives are giving that oxygen to that fascist fire. Because we don't have anyone on our side fighting for us. And the mainstream media are going to play these people up as, they're not going to play them up as heroes. They're going to play them up as villains, throwing a wrench in the system. They're causing Congress not to work. They're, they're holding up the House. Oh, and it's so terrifying because the House can't pass any legislation until this gets done. And look at these Freedom Caucus members, but us working people, the people that struggle. Even I was telling Ron last night, even I had a little bit of FOMO when it comes to like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, not because I don't agree with anything they stand for. I think they're the worst of the worst. But I was jealous and I was angry because I was like, where is the fire on the left? That momentum is local. That momentum is in unions. That momentum is on the ground. But we have to step up and start running more independents. We have to start voting third party. This reforming the Democratic Party isn't going to happen. But those representatives are up there and we should still hold their damn feet to the fire. Every single one of them. I don't care if they have an R by their name, a D by their name, if they're progressive, if they're Republican, if they're Freedom Caucus. I don't care what they are. We should demand all of them give us health care. I don't give a damn what you ran on. You should pass Medicare for all. We should be pushing all of them. Do you have any chats that we can go to some chats here? I've seen some awesome conversation. Hey, Travers, Greta Thunberg for speaker. Heck yeah. She she is on the spectrum, so am I. So I have a special place in my heart for Greta. She's amazing. No pressure from the Progressive Caucus. That's right, nothing, not a damn thing. There is no Progressive Caucus. It's all for show. And you know what? You don't even have to support Medicare for all. You don't even have to be anti-war. There are no benchmarks to get into the Progressive Caucus. So what's the damn point? And if you look in this is something that's really interesting. In 2018, Barbara Lee ran for the head of the Democratic Party, right? She ran for the head, and they shot her down even though she had overwhelming support. And who did they put in her place? Jeffries. Back in 2018, they were setting Jeffries up as the pick to be the Speaker of the House. That's how this works. They're not going to put a progressive who's anti-war, who says to close down the AUMF, who wants to repeal the AUMF, who supports Medicare for all, who calls for funding for schools. They're not going to put them as and calls for the end of corporate donor money. They're not going to put someone like that in charge of the Democratic Party. They put Jeffries in so that they could run him for speaker. This is their long-term plan. They know what they're doing. And what's disgusting and makes me extremely angry is that there is zero pushback from this progressive caucus, from these progressives. Where the hell is the ruckus? It's nowhere to be found. You got some other comments? As someone who doesn't live in the U.S., I can confirm, and this is Michael, is that Kapoor? As someone who doesn't live in the U.S., I can confirm that the Dems are right-wing. Yes! Everyone I talked to, and Ron Placone was talking about this just last night. He said he had a conversation with someone who was discussing healthcare, and he said he was watching. Oh no, he was watching Michael Moore Sicko. Ron was watching Michael Moore Sicko, and in Sicko, Michael Moore was interviewing someone in a country that has universal health care about their stance on healthcare, and they explained that they support universal healthcare. And so that person was painted as being, a leftist, but he said that, this isn't left. I would be considered conservative here. So that is true. Our Democratic Party is absolutely a right-wing party. It's a pro-corporatist party. It's a party that supports not even incrementalism. They've been chipping away at everything. So we don't even have incrementalism anymore. I really love this guest host. I love what she chooses to say, for example, about the progressives fail and the railroad strikes. Thank you, Larry Gurndit. And thank you for the $4.99. We appreciate it. That helps keep us afloat. Really appreciate you. Donald Parrish. Maybe Democrats should support McCarthy. Donald, I believe that they already do. Jeffries and McCarthy are basically the same person when it comes to their core values at the end of the day and the legislation that gets passed. Dave D. Zeynab spitting facts. Thanks, Dave. Teresa 273. Yes, I like this lady. Oh, y'all are making me blush over here. Beth Moore. Our infrastructure is in dangerous condition. 20% of our children live in poverty. Tens of thousands die without health insurance. Not their problem. That's the truth. That's the truth about our infrastructure. Our infrastructure from the American Civil Engineers, every 4 years they do an analysis, right? And we've gotten a D- in 2017 and 2021. Our infrastructure is a mess. Our water systems are poisoned most places. Jordan has spent years covering Flint, and Flint still doesn't have clean water. I live here in Appalachia, and my water, that the levels of pollutants in my water are extremely high right here in Kentucky in coal country. Water tables are polluted in areas that have only well water, which a lot of people don't realize. A lot of places don't even have access to a water purification system. They still use well water in many places in the Midwest. And our water tables are poisoned. But our bridges are crumbling, our roadways are falling apart. Some of these crazy right-wingers that are in the state houses, because Democrats refuse to run and they have no pushback. There's no Democrats that run here. I didn't even have a Democrat to choose on my ticket when I went and when I voted. No Democrat to choose in most seats. So there is no competition, and they're talking about privatizing our public libraries, which our public libraries are already falling apart. No health care, no Medicare for all, no universal health care, even though as far back as 2012, that is exactly what Obama promised, and that's what got him elected. Hell, that's what got Bill Clinton elected. And we hear from these folks, you know, the squad members are now talking about pragmatic progressivism, how it's going to take time and we have to wait. That's a generation. A generation they have been promising us universal health care. For generations upon generations upon generations, we've had colonialism. We've had police violence. We've had militarization of our police. We've had, you know, Black people who still don't have any form of reparations. We still have in indigenous communities that are being wrecked by pollution and corporate hegemony that are exploiting workers. We still have migrants being treated like garbage. Nothing's changed. What have we got? How has our material lives gotten any better? They tell us to wait because they're comfortable and they have health care and they're sitting up there celebrating Jeffries, while the Freedom Caucus gets to act like and pretend that they're the rebels. It's a mess. We got any more comments? Thanks. Oh, wow. Thank you, Teresa, for the $20 super chat. Welcome. Please stay. Thank you so much. I see one from our buddy Chris Garrett. Hey, Chris. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Core values. Did you mean to say party initiative influenced by lobbyists, corporate donors, and oligarchs? By the way, you're doing fine on your first solo. I apologize. Sorry, I'm at my mom's for the holidays and we've got pups. So that's just real life. Thank you so much, Chris. And yes, I meant to say party initiative influenced by lobbyists, corporate donors, and oligarchs. But there's another thing it's influenced by that a lot of people don't realize. There is no, and I say that because I've been behind the scenes, so I've seen what has influenced some of these people and some of the leaders of the organizations that are supposed to hold them accountable, like Justice Democrats, like Brand New Congress, like others that I have seen. It's proximity to celebrity. And celebrity and those pressures changes people. So even running for office can change you if you don't have a thick skin. But being in proximity to that power, or being in power and having that popularity and caring about what people think, to the extent that they want to be in that world, and the longer that they're in that world, the further they get away from what they ran on in the first place. And that's how the establishment swoops in and scoops them up. It's with the book deals. It's with the, you know, the job promises later, but it's not all financial. Some of it is just, it's like being in that club and being able to sit at the popular table at lunch in high school, right? It's terrible that it's that base, but getting corporate money out of it is definitely part of it. Ending the lobbying, ending corporate lobbying is part of it. but then going further and shaking up the establishment machine by getting independents and third party folks in. That's really the only way electorally that I believe we're going to see fundamental change, because this system's baked in. It's baked in. It's baked in, just like we've lived through in our lives when we have the bullies that have picked on us. These people have become bullies, and they're bullying us through financial exploitation and other forms of exploitation. Okay, we got any others?
That's all for now, I think.
All right. Well, Colin, hop on. Who do you think is going to win?
Someone who won't be beneficial to us, probably.
Yep.
If I had to take a guess.
It's not. I think that no matter which way we go, it doesn't matter, really, does it?
We're watching the losers bracket right now battle out.
Yep. Well, thank you, Colin, and thank you for all your help today. And for closing, I'll just say that for the last 2 years, the Democrats have had the majority in the House, and it was a split Senate, and then they had the presidency. A lot of shit could have gotten done. A lot could have gotten done. So if Nancy Pelosi just literally a day ago was Speaker of the House, what difference would it be if Jeffrey wins over McCarthy? Because what the hell did the Democrats do in the last 2 years? And sure, everyone says it's Kristen Sinema's fault, it's Joe Manchin's fault. But I'll tell you what, I was communications director and advisor for Paula Jean Swearengen's campaign. She's my closest friend, so I'm a little biased about her campaign, but I was her press director for both of her campaigns. And what we saw on the ground when she was running against Joe Manchin in 2018 was the Democratic Party establishment do everything they possibly could to bury her campaign, and Jordan covered that. So we had someone extremely popular running against Joe Manchin, and the party did everything to secure Joe Manchin's seat. This is all pageantry. It's pageantry from the caucus, but it is interesting to see them, Trump personally calls them on the phone. This is a Trump caucus, right? And they're still voting the way that they're still voting this way. They're still holding on to this theater, which will have lasting impacts. I think that people will be talking about this vote in the mainstream media for the next several months. And they'll be pointing to this vote anytime that there's a rift in legislation between even the Democrats and Republicans, but especially within the Republican Party. I see Das Bush Fleisch. Hello. I have seen you before. I saw you when I joined the Vanguard a couple of times. Welcome to Status Coup, and thanks so much for all of your support. Here's another one. Welcome. Thank you so much, Das Bush Fleisch. All right, let's see. I'm going to look through and see if anyone has any questions. I don't see anything, but if you guys want to put in the chat who you think is going to win, or if you think that who wins matters or not, share with us who you think is going to win, or if you think it's all just bullshit and it doesn't matter whoever it is. But I don't know how far this is going to go. That's extremely hard to predict, but I think they're going to hold out for a while, enough for the theater to really to rattle some cages. And I think that we're going to see even more slippage away from McCarthy. But I don't believe that there's not any real concessions. This is all right-wing, neo-Nazi virtue signaling. Close down our borders. It's those immigrants. Start building start fracking everywhere. That's what this is about. And that's what I believe is at the heart of it, is theater. But I hope, I've given up hope, to be honest, but I'm not going to stop pushing. These progressives need to step up. They need to call for revolution. They need to buck Biden. They need to get a spine because they represent us. Every single person on that hill needs to do this because they all represent us. But the people that we specifically voted in for things like Medicare for all, the abolition of ICE, and other important corporate, breaking apart the corporate monopolies, securing term limits, which Lauren Boebert mentioned. Many of these progressives ran on that. Kissing Jeffrey's ass and Biden's isn't going to get us there. It's just going to be more of the same. Hey, Micah Geflin says, I'm loving the cat fighting. Oh, you have two kitties in your picture. Aw. I think that it teaches us a whole hell of a lot about how things work on Capitol Hill. If you guys remember the impeachment hearings for Donald Trump. Oh my God. The theatrics in the impeachment hearings was through the roof. Speaking of Jim Jordan, he really put on, I felt like Jim Jordan took acting lessons before he came to the committee hearings. And it was all theater, and it was hyped up theater, and it was disgusting to see the theatrics, just like it's gross to see it right now, because for me, the thing that hits me as someone from poverty, someone in poverty, someone that's struggled my whole life, is that they're doing this while 3 million children a year are homeless or have housing insecurity. While we're paying half of our paychecks out just to have a roof over our head, let alone car insurance, our other bills. We can't get a job with benefits anymore. We're saddled with tens of $1,000s in student loan debts because we couldn't find a job without a degree. While they're funding the largest war budget in American history. While they're expanding the police state. They're building a cop city off mostly federal funds in Atlanta. They're tearing down an indigenous forest to build a whole training center for cops, where they have a helipad, where Atlanta is building a helipad for Black Hawk helicopters. This stuff is going on, and we can laugh at the theater, but at the end of the day, we also have to be angry. You know, we should be angry about it because people are suffering, people are dying, people are hurting. Corporations, we shouldn't have Elon Musk's out there. We shouldn't have billionaires. Shouldn't exist. But I think that is going to wrap it up. I'm going to look and see some of your all's comments. I'm waiting for the American immigrants to be going to other countries. Actually, Carl, we have more folks leaving as expats than we do migrants coming in. So the falsehood that migrants are flooding our borders is very interesting, because every year on year, we have more folks from American citizens leaving and becoming expats than we do migrants coming in. No one ever talks about that, do they? When the system grinds to a halt, things will change. Rick Drowski. I don't know. You know, that is a good point, but we've seen months of government shutdowns and nothing's changed yet. But I don't know. I think it's going to take a lot of pushback from us and us doing all the things. Electoral, unions, activism, helping each other in our own communities through mutual aid and building up what we can to help each other. We can't even honor a general strike. Oh, Teresa, I know. It's so sad. I'm half Iranian, and I'm looking at Iran right now and what's going on there, and the people standing up for their rights. And they've had a general strike for 60 days. Almost 90 days now. And people are being arrested and they're being given the death penalty for protesting, and people are still showing up in the streets to protest. And they have very strong community ties holding each other together and helping lift each other up. There's a lot that we can learn from the way that they're organizing, but they've held on and maintained a general strike for almost 90 days. Oh, we've got Darren Jensen. Please keep streaming. Love you, girl. Keep up the outstanding work. Thanks, Darren. Really appreciate it. Michael Kapoor says, Honor can't even start a general strike. Oh, that is extremely true. It does take a massive amount of organizing to start, and everyone's so fractured. I'm an organizer on the left, and I've been in circles trying to help do actions, organizing, fight for Medicare for all, other things. And I've seen some great organizing, but I've also seen folks arguing about what can come one day, about getting into the academic weeds about the difference between socialism and communism, and the difference between Stalinism and Marxism, and which way we're going to go, with others saying that we can't go anywhere without bloody revolution, instead of being intentional, taking the steps. The right wing are far more grassroots oriented and organized than the left. They're very organized. They're in the communities. They're doing things, some things good, but most things terrible. But they're doing it, and they're getting it done because they will show up, and they'll show up locally, and they'll do the work, and they're not arguing about, the finite details, the way that we have the fractures in the left movement right now. That needs to end. But that I also blame that on the representatives that we have that are supposed to be leftist, that are supposed to be progressive, that are supposed to be challenging the status quo. When there's no one representing us, it's all over the place. Well, I think that we're going to wrap it up. I believe that they will be starting, or have started. Colin, have they started the second vote? Do you happen to, or the fifth vote? Five! Do you guys know if they've started that yet? Well, definitely, I believe Ron or not Ron, actually, tonight at 5 p.m., so in 2 hours, you guys can join us again for the fabulous Kim Brown, who is amazing. And Kim will be talking a little bit about this, but she's also going to be talking about the NFL Bills player Hamlin's collapse, and the treatment of Black athletes and corporate exploitation, as well as the response to his collapse. She is amazing. Kim Brown, with her show Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Kim Brown will be joining us at 5 to go over that, as well as what's happening here, and share some other stories with us. She is always live at 5. So just to give you guys a little bit of a recap of when Status Coup is live, we are live Mondays through Thursdays at 5 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Ron Placone and the amazing Tina Desiree Berg hosts. Wednesday at 5 p.m., Kim Brown hosts. And when is it that Grumbine hosts again, Colin? I can't remember. Which Steve Grumbine is amazing. He's an MMT specialist and economics expert. So you can usually catch him, I believe, at 8. Is it?
He does his live sort of Q&A type of session on Fridays at 5, and then his Get Ready to Grumble is Sundays at 5.
Sundays at 5. So at 5 on Fridays, he has an AMA. The last time he did it, that was so much fun. So join us for those, and keep a lookout for other shorts and other things that we're doing on the ground. Please like and subscribe. And if you guys haven't liked, please do, because you guys may know, and it's not just a bunch of hullabaloo, but YouTube is literally suppressing independent journalists because they are platforming mainstream media as accurate, real journalism. We know how much they're accurate and real. So if you can, please like, subscribe. You can also find us on Status Coup Substack, where we'll be having some written investigative pieces. I'm going to help there as well as you can sign up and get notifications about when we go live. I was so excited to join you guys today. It's been awesome. The chat was so much fun. So many awesome people. Aggravated Progressive, Dave D, Teresa, Arlene. We had Chris Garrett in the chat today, Michael Kapoor, Raziel the Great. So many amazing people. Beth Moore, Travelers Wolf, and Teresa. Thank you guys all for all of your support. Oh, and Uncle Slayer, Carl. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, and hope to see you guys again soon. And keep up the good fight, man. Go out there and raise hell like the progressives aren't doing.